All through the Bible, we see references to angelic beings carrying out the will of God. Angels are not a fringe topic in Scripture. 34 books in the Bible mention angels. In the Old Testament, angels are mentioned 108 times, and in the New Testament, angels are mentioned 168 times. And although they are not the focus of Scripture, we see them working behind the scenes on almost every page of Scripture. Now, if you're anything like me, you've heard a lot of sermons in church on the devil, and in some circles, they'll even talk about demons, but there is very little on the subject of angels. But there are more angel references than demon references in Scripture. In fact, the word angel is mentioned more than the word love or sin in the New Testament. Angels play a significant role in God's plan, and yet, because of the lack of teaching on this subject, many believers are unaware of the role that angels play in our lives. So in this video, I want to talk about what angels actually do. Hebrews 1:7-14 says this, "And speaking of the angels, he says he makes his angels spirits and his servants flames of fire. Are not all angels ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation?" Angels are ministering spirits. Angels are employed to minister to and serve believers. Angels are actively involved in the lives of God's people. Coach Mike DeBose and his wife Polly had just moved from Chattanooga to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Polly took a break from unpacking and moving boxes in their new tri-level home to put their 2-year-old son to bed. Then Polly went downstairs and continued unpacking all the boxes. Unknown to Polly, her son had climbed out of his crib, slipped outside, found his big wheel scooter, and disappeared. Polly continued to get her house in order, and she was totally unaware her son was in harm's way. As she continued unpacking, there was a knock at the door. When Polly opened the door, there stood a lady with her son. The woman explained she had found the boy at a busy intersection 2 blocks away. Now understand that Polly knew no one in Hattiesburg, and she had just moved to that address. So frightened and startled, she turned to set her boy down, and then she turned back to thank the lady who brought her son home, and there was no one at the door. The lady just vanished. Polly had never saw or heard from that lady again. She has no doubt that an angel brought their son back home that day. Angels are invisible ministers sent to serve believers as they seek to fulfill the will of God. You know, after Jesus had fasted 40 days in the wilderness and was tempted by the devil, the scripture says that angels came and ministered to him. The same way that angels ministered to Jesus, angels will minister to you. Angels serve believers and help them fulfill their God-given purpose. And one way God comes to our aid is through the ministry of angels. You know, one of the most common questions people ask is, why angels? Like, why doesn't God just do it all himself? And that's a good question, and I think it has to do with the fact that God is a king and has a kingdom. To think that a king would do it all himself is like expecting the founder of Starbucks to personally make your latte. Why would he do that when he has employees who are trained to do that job? And see, angels are God's servants, delegated to assist believers and help them accomplish God's purpose on the earth. The king's job is not to run around performing every task. Instead, he issues decrees that are carried out by his heavenly host to serve and assist God's people. And in this video, I want to look at 4 ways that angels minister to believers. Number 1, angels rescue believers from trouble. Psalm 34:7 says, "The angel of the Lord encamps all around those who fear him and delivers them." You know, in Daniel chapter 6, a group of people conspired against Daniel and had him thrown into the lion's den. The next morning, the king went over to the lion's den and said, "Daniel, has your God been able to rescue you from the lions?" And Daniel responded, "My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me because I was found innocent in his sight, nor have I ever done any wrong before you, your majesty." See, it was an angel who shut the mouth of the lions and delivered Daniel. And just in case you think that the lions didn't harm Daniel because they weren't hungry, the king had the men who conspired against Daniel thrown into the lion's den, and the lions devoured them before they even reached the ground. See, God sent angels to deliver Daniel, and he'll send angels to deliver and rescue you as well. There was a woman named Beth who had just given birth to a baby girl. And early one morning, Beth's stove caught on fire, and she tried to put out the fire, but it continued to get bigger and bigger. And while she was trying to put out the fire, she was unaware that the fire had spread to the second floor of the house. The entire upstairs was being engulfed in flames while her newborn baby was upstairs. When suddenly a man walked directly into the burning house, went upstairs, got the baby, and then pulled Beth out of the house just before the entire house was engulfed in flames. When she turned to thank the man who had rescued her daughter out of the house, he disappeared, and she hadn't seen that man since. Beth has no doubt that God sent an angel to rescue her daughter and her that day. Number 2, angels provide guidance. Exodus 23:20, God said, "Behold, I send an angel before you to guard you on the way and bring you to the place that I have prepared." God sent an angel to guard and guide the Israelites into the promised land, and God will send angels to guard and guide you into your purpose. See, divine guidance is part of your inheritance as a child of God, and in many cases, that guidance comes from angels. Angels guided Abraham's servant on his quest to find a bride for Isaac. In the book of Judges, an angel showed Gideon how to defeat the Midianites. In the book of Acts, angels brought guidance and help to evangelize and spread the gospel. In Acts chapter 8, an angel told Philip which direction he was supposed to go. And while he went down that road, he came across an Ethiopian eunuch who was reading from the prophet Isaiah. And Philip was able to explain to him what the scriptures meant and led him to Christ. Acts chapter 10, an angel appeared to Cornelius and told him to find Peter. And Peter comes over to Cornelius's house and he shares the gospel, and Cornelius's entire household gets saved. And so angels were involved in guiding the early believers. Number 3, angels impart divine strength. Another way that angels minister to believers is by giving them divine strength. When you are in a place of hardship, when you're discouraged, when you are suffering, when you're burned out, when you feel beaten down, angels come to minister to you, giving you supernatural strength to endure. See, before Jesus went to the cross, he was in the garden praying. Jesus was experiencing such agony that he was literally sweating drops of blood. In Luke 22:43, it says, "Then an angel appeared to him from heaven, strengthening him." See, an angel gave Jesus the strength to endure the suffering that was before him. And in the same way that angels strengthen Jesus, they impart strength to us in our time of need. Sometimes we feel spiritually, mentally, emotionally, or even physically worn out. In fact, you might even feel too exhausted to go to church or spend time in prayer. But when you do it anyways, you always leave that time feeling renewed, spirit, soul, and body. And I believe that in those moments, angels were strengthening you. And lastly, number 4, angels protect believers. Psalm 91:11, "For he will order his angels to protect you wherever you go. They will hold you up with their hands so that you won't even hurt your foot on a stone." Angels are like unseen bodyguards protecting us from harm, injury, and calamity. Angels provide you with supernatural protection. There was an evangelist preaching in India, and a group of religious extremists became angry with him, and so they decided to kill him. And so in the middle of his sermon, this man came walking to the front with a machete in his hand to kill the evangelist. And so he's right in the middle of his sermon, and he sees this man approaching, and in his mind, he goes, "God, what do I do?" And the Lord said, "Keep preaching, I'll handle it." The man continued to walk closer to the stage when all of a sudden it appeared as if the man was hit in the chest with an invisible baseball bat, and the man fell back to the ground and did not get up. A couple of minutes later, one of the guy's friends came in with a machete, And so he sees his friend on the floor and thought the evangelist did something to him. So he charged the stage, and the same thing happened to him. It looked like somebody struck him with an invisible baseball bat, hit him right in the chest, and he fell back and hit the ground. Then a third guy came in, and the same thing happened. He charged the stage and was hit with some invisible force and fell to the ground. Then the fourth man came in and saw all of his friends laid out on the ground. And instead of charging the stage, he thought, you know what? I'm going to sit down and listen to what this guy has to say. See, angels are like unseen bodyguards who have the assignment to protect you in all of your ways. Now, just because we have angelic protection doesn't mean that we should intentionally put ourselves in harm's way. In Luke chapter 4, Satan challenged Jesus to throw himself off the highest point of the temple by citing that God would protect Jesus with his angels. And Jesus responded and said, "Do not put the Lord your God to the test." See, we don't want to test God by intentionally doing things that would cause harm. But as you go about your day, you should be aware that angels are guarding and protecting you. Now, whenever people hear stories about angels protecting people from harm, they immediately wonder why they didn't experience divine protection or why their friends or loved ones suffered harm. So in my next video on angels, we're going to see that even though angels have been assigned to serve believers, we play an important role in activating their assistance in our lives. So make sure that you subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss out on our next video on angels, where you can learn how to put your angels to work. If you found this video helpful, do me a favor, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm to help push this video out to more people. I also want to thank all those who share my videos on Facebook. The majority of the views to my videos come through your engagement on Facebook, so thank you so much for that. I'd also love to hear your thoughts on this video in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and remember, if it's not good, God's not done.